everyone, and welcome back to the Earth to the Moon podcast. I'm Andy, and joining me as ever is my lunar module pilot, Elton.
Yes, I am here, and I am Bako Keiko, I do believe the kids are saying nowadays. Apologies straight off the bat. If you can hear birds tweeting in the background, it's because I've got all the windows open. Because over in England, we had snow like 3 weeks ago, and now it's like summer. So
it's like 29 degrees yesterday.
What the hell is going on, man?
I don't know. It's nothing to do with climate change, obviously. Nothing to do with that at all.
I give up. So yeah, if you can hear birds tweeting, just enjoy it this time.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's painting a nice little picture. You know, it's like an episode of The Archers.
Imagine we're on the moon and we've built our dome, and this is the aviary that we are in.
Oh, I'm down with that. Okay, fine. Yeah, we're in the aviary on the Rogue 2 dome.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
cool.
Not the Shonky one, because that would have fallen apart years and years ago.
Yes, it would have done. But we're here to talk about Apollo 15, the third from last mission to the moon. It's very sad. Very sad. I suppose brief impressions. What did you think of this episode?
So yeah, we're up to part 10 now, aren't we? Wow.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Now,
it is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, this was. I know most of it is on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff on the moon that we get is really, really good. Apart from some one or two bits of modelling and continuity error, but all this stuff, because it's dealing with the situation and the science that's going to be happening on the moon, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the way that these guys get really excited about rocks.
I mean, yeah. All of a sudden, I'm going to go, wow, I want to be a geologist too.
Yeah. It's like, well, you watched Indiana Jones and you wanted to become an archaeologist, didn't you?
And then you watched Jurassic Park and you wanted to become a paleontologist.
Exactly, yes. And so now you're watching this and you're like, I want to play with rocks. So, yeah, I thought this was really good.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this episode as well. Again, as with most of these episodes, very different from all that's come before or come after. So that's cool. We're going to talk a little bit about the episode in Apollo 15, but I'm also going to tell you all a little bit about something which isn't touched upon in this episode.
Oh, okay.
What happened with the real Apollo 15, because there's some controversy.
Oh, is there? Okay. Right, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so I'll get to that towards the end. There is a point where we can talk about it in the episode, during our kind of revisiting of places, so we'll get to that.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, we kind of start off as we usually do with Tom Hanks giving his little narration. And again, he points out that, you know, these guys going to the moon, they don't just have to be astronauts. They have to be geologists. They have to be historians. They have to be storytellers. They have to be effectively Renaissance men, which is quite right, because, you know, they do kind of have to be able to do all of these sort of things. Because we've already touched upon this in previous episodes, there's limited scientific benefit to sending people in terms of your return for your investment, if you will. I am 100% pro sending people out into space. I'm even okay with bringing them back again.
Maybe not, though.
Some, yeah, we'll get that. But when it comes to like the amount of science you can get for a return, let's remember that up on Mars, the Opportunity rover has now been going for something like 15 fucking years.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that was meant to last for 90 days originally.
Yeah.
And
all the stuff that they've thrown over at Mars has kind of worked above and beyond when it hasn't crashed and died.
I was going to say, it's either hasn't worked at all or it's, you know, got even better. But yeah, it's basically, as of today, we are 4 days away from its 14th anniversary.
Is that the one that plays Happy Birthday to itself?
No, that's Curiosity, because apparently NASA are dicks and they just wanted it to play Happy Birthday to itself. But yeah, there's a very funny XKCD cartoon which points out that once man has established a lunar colony there, you know, everything the light touches is man's domain. What about that shadowy area over there? That belongs to Opportunity. You must never go there. So these guys have to, you know, effectively, not to justify it, but, you know, they have to do a lot more than just fly and land on the moon. That's nothing. I mean, again, as remarkable as Neil Armstrong landing with Apollo 11, very limited scientific benefit from that mission, other than proving it could be done. And then Apollo 12 did a little bit more.
Yeah. Apollo 11 was about getting boots on the ground, wasn't it? And that was it. That was the sole mission. It
was basically get up there to go, Yabu sucks to you, Russians. We beat you, and we're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In this episode, and I suppose with Apollo 15, this is the first time, I suppose, that the science has been a lot more at the forefront, as opposed to the landing aspect of it. You know, we still had science taking place with the other missions, obviously. There was lots of spacewalks. But, you know, I think the Apollo 14, in terms of time on the moon, Apollo 14 was there for under a day, whereas Apollo 15, just shy of 3 days on the moon. So a lot more time for a lot more science.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's no longer just enough to go and just pick up the nearest rocks and say, yeah, that's good. And again, there's no lunar probes there for them to go and, you know, steal bits off of it, leave it on the cinder blocks. You know, there's a lot more opportunities to do stuff here. So what we have here is, we kind of start off with, these astronauts sitting bored to tears in one of those lectures that we all used to have at school, where you got some 90-year-old professor lecturing on about some bollocks, which, you know, really we could just read in the textbooks.
Yeah, I've been there. I've done that with electrical mechanical engineering, and geez, we used to have a lecturer on a Friday afternoon. Jeez, man, that was the worst time to put him on.
Yep.
Just like waffle on, and that clock kind of, you know, when you see in a film where the clock ticks slowly by the second, and then all of a sudden it stops.
And goes backwards.
Yeah, that was them lessons.
Yeah. And that's what this kind of looks like. I mean, what's weird about this episode almost is it kind of feels like this is a down and out public American school with these group of teenagers that no one can teach. Mm-hmm. And they just managed to find that one teacher who's a little bit quirky, you know, that Robin Williams-esque one. And he just comes in and turns them all around by taking them on funky field trips and everything because he believes in them.
He talks to them as well.
He speaks their language.
Yeah. And it's always better doing practical as well, getting out in the field. And if you're going to talk about rocks, it's no good putting one on a bench and saying, right, this is that. Look at it, feel it, pass it around the class. That's as close as you're going to get to anything. Take them out there and show them.
How does that bit when he's standing there and he goes, this is a story about, you know, great battles and conflicts and moments of peace and, you know, turbulations and all that. And you can see with the astronauts, they're like going, really? I thought it was just rocks. And it's just kind of cool how it all, you know, gets turned around. I mean, the driving force about this initially is Jack Schmitt, who was part of the backup crew for Apollo 15.
Yeah.
But he was the only scientist astronaut. So he was a scientist first before becoming an astronaut, whereas all the others were pilots and test pilots. You know, since then, it's kind of become the norm that astronauts are primarily scientists, but he was kind of the first one there. So he kind of goes and finds his old mentor, Dr. Leon Silver, PhD. And again, you know, it kind of just tells him, look, you know, we need you to come and talk to these guys because the guys are smart. That's not the problem. You know, they have the capacity to understand this. It's just you can't teach them in that way of just sitting in a bloody thing reading out of a textbook because who gives a fuck?
Well, exactly. You know? Yeah, they say that they're all test pilots and some of the best pilots in the world, but they didn't become that by sitting there and reading about flying, did they?
No, you go out and you do. And again, the nice thing is that Dr. Silver has passion for his topic as well, whereas you feel like the guy they have teaching it at the beginning is just, you know, he's just reading out of a textbook.
Yeah.
You know, there's no passion there. So yeah, I mean, that's just what's great. And again, over the course of the episode, we kind of see, especially through Dave Scott, him going from this very much doubting what's the benefit here. You know, it's like, you know, we've got better things to be doing. Do we have the time to do this? To being massively infused about it to the point he's turning around to Deke and say, we want to add another EVA so we can basically do a field survey. And, you know, I want an extra rake and I want a telephoto lens and all this sort of stuff. So I really like seeing that transformation there from Dave Scott.
I love that. I thought that was, you can see the passion in his face. He's all of a sudden, because now he understands what he's doing. He's getting excited about this field. He wants to go out there and do the science. And I think otherwise it would have been the most important thing for him would be get down there. Look, I'm on the moon. I'm setting up these experiments, but, you know, kind of, I don't care. I'm on the moon and enjoying that and then going home. Whereas now he's getting on the moon. That's exciting. But then all of a sudden, the science that is in front of him, he can actually do now, and he can understand it a little bit better. And that's what's really getting to him. Yeah.
And it's great seeing him kind of come to understand it. I believe that the actor they had playing Dave Scott, while he quickly tries to find the tab which has the cast of characters there.
Oh, I wish I had it open. I did have it open a second ago.
Yeah, I had it open a second ago. I clicked to go to something else, as you do, and now I can't find it. You know what? I've got it here now. Let me just find the guy's name. Dave.
I'm racing you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm trying, and it's not.
Brett Cullen.
Oh, nuts.
There you go. I beat you. Brett Cullen, who plays Dave Scott, the real Dave Scott and his wife invited him around to their house every time an episode with him in it. Right. You know? So, yeah, I thought that was, really kind of cool. Again, there was that connection, and, they were willing to make the time to do all that. So, yeah, it was just kind of cool seeing that transformation, certainly with the other astronauts, but, primarily with him. Mm. So we see that kind of, the science there. We also have the command module pilot who, you might think, oh, well, all he's got to do is basically just kind of kick back and, jerk off into a sock for 3 days, as we established is what they did, alone in a command module. But no, they've got science for him to do as well. And again, he's being taught by a guy called Farouk Elbaz.
Yep.
He's an Egyptian American scientist. Going to tangent a little, and you can turn off because you won't care about this. But in Star Trek: The Next Generation, there's a shuttle named after him, Elbaz, and the director of this episode, Dave Carson, directed 4 episodes of The Next Generation and the movie Generations. So there you go for all your Trekkie fans out there. Did some DS9 as well. But anyway,
can I turn back on now?
You can turn back on now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but Farouk Elbaz is teaching him how to do observations from the command module as they're flying over the various geographical features, and again reporting that, because again they don't have live. I mean, they do have some television cameras, but they're not really high enough resolution to be much scientific benefit.
No, you need the human eye on this, don't you?
You need the human eye and the human observations to describe these things. And again, he's going along and he's describing the Tchaikovsky crater and everything like that, and all these kind of lunar features there. And again, it's great seeing through the training process, teaching him how to understand and see it. And you have that moment where he's, describing it and he gets it right, and he goes, he's suddenly beaming. Al Warden is beaming, going, "Hey, I got it right." I go, "Yes, you will be a scientist, my friend."
I love this Farouk character. I think he's brilliant. I want to see an actual show dedicated to him, maybe traveling through time. I don't know, but I reckon that'd suit him. But I think he's brilliant. I loved him. And when they're doing the actual practice, when they're up in the plane and they're going over the lava flows they have and the old dormant volcanoes, etc. And he's trying to get him to describe it. And I love the way that both teachers throw them into the deep end, because that's how you're going to learn. And the way that he's trying to describe what he's seeing, he's like, rocks, smoke, rocks. And then it's gone. And he's like, "Oh, you missed your chance." And then I think that's the point where, okay, I'm only going to get a couple of passes at this, so I need to describe this straight away, because they need the information straight away so they can organize their plan of attack on the moon, really, don't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, we know that from things like the Apollo 12 missions and all this, it was those overflights which helped them decide where to land for Apollo 13 and 14, and even one of the landing sites that was mentioned for this, the Marius crater, was something that Apollo 12 had photographed.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of that going on there. But it's just great how you kind of seeing the crew come together as scientists and field observers and to understand it. Again, like when he's explaining that, okay, the dead cat thing. You know, if you give me a dead cat, all I can tell you is it's a cat and it's dead.
Yeah.
But if you tell me you found it in the road, okay, I can start making theories as to why it is. And I think this was the first mission where they were really doing that for the samples they're bringing back. So on 11 and 12 and 14, they're just bringing back rock samples, which is great. But they're not really describing or talking about where they found it or how they found it.
Yeah.
Which informs so much more of, you know, that's almost more important than the rock itself. You know, to a certain extent, after a while, a rock is a rock. But how did that rock come to be there tells you a lot more about the moon than just that. So it was again, you know, this is a very dry subject, supposedly, you know, just lunar geology. But this episode does a really good job of making it interesting. And another damning indictment of the Apollo 13 episode, but it made that so boring.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, all they're doing is talking about rocks, but it does open your eyes as to. I love that dead cat analogy because, yeah, a dead cat is a dead cat, but then you need the context as to where you found it and why you found it and where, how long ago you found it, etc.
Well, it's when he said the difference between dinner and roadkill is context.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's brilliant. And these rocks that they need to bring back, it's getting them excited about that and then getting a passionate built into these astronauts about, they've already got the excitement about, okay, rocks. And now you can tell a story with them rocks. And then you might find something really bloody important with these rocks as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got excited about this. I really did. I don't know why. I would have thought this would have been a dull and boring episode about rocks, but no, man, this was good. There was also a little bit of sadness tinged in there as well, where you learn about the cancellation of Apollo 18 and 19.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. So we find out here again, you know, it's something that I think they'd always known was coming from the moment 11 landed was the scale of a program was being cut back. So Apollo 20 had already been scrubbed prior to this, before crews were assigned to it.
Right.
But crews had been assigned already to 18 and 19. And so this was the moment when guys like Jack Schmitt and some of the others were basically being told that, yeah, you will not go to the moon now. At least that's the plan. I mean, you know, spoiler alert, Schmitt makes it to the moon later on, but we'll get into that when we get to that episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that moment of sadness there. And they effectively, I mean, they do have to scrub the original Apollo 15 mission because 15 was supposed to be an H mission, the same as 12, 13 and 14 was, with originally just like a 2-day stay on the moon tops. Whereas now it's going to become one of the J missions, which were the longer stay ones. And in addition, it was new spacesuits. So these were the A7B spacesuits, I think. Slightly different connector setups. And I think they were just a bit more movable and could carry more supplies.
Yeah.
Also, the Lunar Rover was something they were going to bring with them on this thing. So they're bringing a car to the moon now.
Yeah, I love that they're doing this. The one thing I was a bit disappointed about this episode is that they didn't show clearly enough how that Lunar Rover was attached to the LEM.
Oh, if people want to see that, if you go to the Wikipedia page for the Lunar Rover, there's a video there showing it coming out. And did you ever used to have Starcom toys when you were a kid, Elton?
Not as far as I know, no.
Well, basically, there were these spaceship toys, but you'd flick a switch and it was all kind of like springs and cogs, and they just kind of like expand out and pop out. And it's like watching one of those.
Yeah.
They pull out the floor and all of a sudden the wheels pop out. And then they pull it out some more, and then the rear wheels pop out and it kind of comes gently down to the ground. And it's just kind of cool watching that.
Yeah, I would have loved a little hint as to, look, guys, you're taking this with you. It was just a little, okay, right, yeah, you're taking the car with you. And then that was it. There was nothing else. It would have been nice.
The interesting thing was, I was going to say, they developed the Lunar Rover in like 17 months.
Yeah.
So they didn't even start developing this at the start of the Apollo landings. So, and that's kind of cool. I mean, it's an awesome little buggy. When you see it driving around, although that rear wheel steering seems kind of funky.
That's an odd way of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having rear wheel steering. Now, I know, what is it? Oh, the forklift trucks do the rear wheel steering.
Yeah.
But that's to do with manoeuvring stuff in a warehouse and having tight turning circles. But this, it's just there. Well, look, it might not just be there for shits and giggles, but it seems like it's just there for shits and giggles.
Well, I'm just, again, reading on the Wikipedia, as one does. Apparently, it had front and rear wheel steering, but you could choose. So the wheels could steer independently, effectively.
Right.
The front and rear. Or you could decouple, so only one set would turn. I guess to just give you maximum maneuverability.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing wasn't hugely fast. The unofficial lunar speed record is held by Gene Cernan on Apollo 17 of a mighty 11.7 miles an hour.
Wow.
And we say unofficial because, as we know, to be an official speed record, you have to do a measured mile and then turn around and do it the other way.
Yep.
And they just kind of leave a total.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to give you a sense, with the Apollo 15, it covered a total of 27 kilometers.
On just this mission alone?
On this mission alone, yeah. I mean, it never went further than 5 kilometers away.
Yeah.
Because you never want to be more than walking distance from the LEM in case something goes wrong. But yeah, over the course of 3 days, it went 27 kilometers, sorry.
That's impressive.
It is. So yeah, awesome. It also had a little TV camera on it, which was controlled from mission control.
That was the gold one that was spinning around at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah. If you remember that famous scene of Apollo 17 taking off, the lunar module.
Yeah.
And again, it was the mission control were controlling the camera on the rover to film that, which is kind of impressive. They tried it on 15 and 16 and messed it up both times. And on their last chance, they managed to get it right.
Nice one.
So yeah, that was that there. Again, like we said, they've cancelled the J mission. I thought it was quite fun when you're listening to them trying to decide on the correct landing site, and you got that one guy. Got them saying, "Oh, we need to land here. It's safer. It's kind of, it's more in keeping with what we've done. We're only just starting to get good at equatorial landings. Why should we mess this all up?" And then the other guys are saying, "Yes, but there's much more geological interest over here, and we can get maybe a sample of a primordial crust." And then the guy just turns around and goes, "The moon's the moon," and it's just like, "Oh, dude,
no, it's not, is it?"
That's not the attitude to be having there.
No, that's right. So you had 2, possibly 3 sites. Well, they mentioned 3 landing sites, don't they? They mentioned the Marius Hills, Hadley, and I can't remember the last name of.
No. Well, it's the Marius Crater.
Yep.
The Hadley Apennine.
Yeah.
Apennine. And then someone just
Tycho.
mentions Tycho flippantly. Now, the Tycho crater, if you picture the moon in your head,
mm-hmm.
and at the bottom, at least in the UK, it's at the bottom, was that massive crater which kind of just spreads ejecta all over the lower. That's the Tycho crater.
Right, okay. Interesting.
And for those of you who know your 2001, that's also where they found the monolith.
Is that where it is?
That is, yes. The monolith is actually in the films referred to as TMA-1, the Tycho magnetic anomaly. So, yeah, maybe that's what they were going. They were going to try and find the monolith.
See, nowadays you'd have to go straight there, wouldn't you? Just in case. Yeah, it's interesting the way that they're battling, and there's no give or take, is there? It's just, no, sorry, I'm right. I want to go to the Marius crater. No, I want to go to Hadley. And it's just, there's arguments about it. There's no, well, it could be good to go to this, but I'm going to give you reasons not to go to this. It's just, no, button of heads. And that's really disappointing to hear and see.
I think it comes down to, I think to a certain extent, you have, on the one hand, it's play it safe. We know we can do these missions now. Let's keep doing that. And I think they see the limited scientific benefit to doing it. For them, for those people, it was really much more a case of, we beat the Russians to the moon. Yeah. Who cares? Who cares? And then on the other side, you've got the ones who are advocating, if you have people there, they can do a lot more. They're intelligent. They can identify stuff that a robot or a probe, certainly in the 60s, wouldn't have been able to do. And you know, we have a great chance of doing good science here than we do there. So that's what it kind of came down to. And again, it's kind of a point where we see how far Dave Scott's come over the course of the episode, where he comes down to having the final say, and he goes, I want to do the Hadley Ridge because, you know, and he gives a load of scientific reasons and he acknowledges the safety aspect, but then he turns around and goes, but at the end of the day, there's a lot more grandeur here, and there's something to be said for exploring somewhere beautiful. And I don't think at the start of this episode he would have been looking at it in that way with the mountains and all that. He'd have just been like,
No, yeah, you get the feeling that it would have been a case of, well, whatever's easiest, whatever's safest for us to get down on the moon, because that's the mission.
Exactly, yeah. And so it's kind of nice to see that change. And I mean, when you look at the pictures from Apollo 15, it's a much more interesting landscape around it than like with any of the other ones, where it's always been pretty much flat.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll send you a picture here on Skype chat, which you can stick in the show notes for all the listeners to have a look at themselves.
Okay.
But this is a picture of the Falcon on the surface at the thing, and you can see these massive mountains behind it and everything, and it's just like, when you compare it to the other lunar landing sites where it's just been like all you can see for miles and miles and miles is you know a flat plane, it just looks much more interesting.
Yeah, it gives you depth, it gives you size as well, doesn't it? And right, this is going to sound a bit strange, but I was looking through the pictures last night after watching the episode, and I know it's all grey, but these are some of the most colourful photos I've seen on the Apollo missions.
Are these from the NASA Apollo dump on Flickr?
I don't know. I think I just got one off of Wikipedia, and it's one with the LEM in the middle. You got the flag there. You got the astronaut on the left hand side, and you got the rover on the right hand side. And it's one of the most colourful ones I've seen. I don't know why that is. Everything else is grey. The astronaut is covered in grey, but yeah. You don't expect, I don't think we've come to expect colourful photos from this.
Yeah.
And yet we've got them there. And yeah, and then you've got the mountains in the background. It just adds something extra, doesn't it? Like you say, all the other stuff has been flat, hasn't it? Which has been, it's not disappointing, but I suppose you didn't really go to the moon expecting to see massive mountains.
No. You, when you think of the moon, you generally just think craters.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. But, yeah, seeing the actual mountains behind. Now, I wouldn't know how tall these mountains were. Whether they would actually be classed as mountains or not, I do not know. But it gives you something extra. It gives you a nice backdrop.
Oh, yeah. I'm just looking on the Flickr one, the Flickr site. Because if you go to the Flickr Project Apollo archive, they have albums, and basically it's all the magazines from all the cameras from all the Apollo missions are there. There's thousands of pictures here from the Apollo missions, which is cool. And on the Apollo 15 one, you've actually got the photos from that stand-up EVA they did. So when he stands out the top of the LEM at the beginning and is taking the pictures for that initial survey, it's got those pictures there.
Oh, has it?
Yeah. Which is kind of cool. Again, it's kind of nice for, again, from that training and about, because there's that moment where Dr. Silver sends him up to a ridge and tells him to describe it. And at first it's just terrible. But then later on he's getting better and understanding it. And when he gets on the moon and you can see he pops the hatch and sticks his head out and, you know, they kind of see it. I like how they had to try and convince Deke that it was worthwhile by effectively bringing him to one of these camps, I suppose, the excursions, to show him the benefit to it and to get him on board, which is cool. And it kind of just shows it. I don't know if they did this for 16 and 17, because possibly with 17, because in 17 Jack Schmitt goes along and he's already a trained geologist. But still, it's kind of a shame they weren't doing this from 12 onwards, I guess, you know. again, they had limited time there, but you do feel that would have been a lot more potential for science there if they'd been doing it earlier in the program.
Yeah, I think so, but I think it also comes with the change of the program as well, doesn't it? Where they're spending a lot more time on the surface. They, not saying they have a lot of free time or spare time, because there's no casinos to go to or anything like that, but they have, but they have all this time and they want to fill it up with stuff. And so, okay, out comes the science. And yeah, just the way that they, even that view of them popping the hatch, it was nice to see that on this episode because it was different. We didn't get a launch. We didn't get a landing. We just got the guy popping up from the top.
I suppose it's worth also mentioning there was probably more of a sense of urgency from 15 onwards, because prior to that, they didn't, as far as we knew, they had 20 missions. Well, they had up until Apollo 20, and then additional Apollo missions or uses of the Apollo hardware after that. Now they've already been told budgets are cutting. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, we need to get 5 missions worth of science in at least 3 missions, maybe even less, because they could have turned around and cancelled 17 at some point.
Yeah, this is like giving a TV show an end date, isn't it? And people scrabbling around going, oh, hang on, we haven't put this in yet. We need to wiggle this storyline around. And that's what they're doing. They've got an end date and they need to get everything accomplished by that point. And yeah, I suppose having the longer missions and lots of science to do, they just cram it all in, don't they?
Yeah, or certainly as much as they can do. We have a lot of talk about finding the I can't remember what the name of the rock is, some sort of anthracite or something like that, but basically a piece of a primordial lunar crust.
Yeah.
And we get that kind of almost pre-teaser at the beginning when they find, we see that they find it. And it's this thing called the Genesis rock, which is effectively it's one of the oldest known rock samples ever. I mean, it's been dated to about 4 billion years old. It's like from the dawn of the solar system. That's
right. It's not from the original surface of the moon, though, is it?
No, they think it's shortly after that.
Yeah.
But it's still one of the oldest rock samples that we know of. And again, it's something that a robot wouldn't have necessarily found. It might have got it out of luck, but it wouldn't have been looking for it.
Yeah. Right, I've got the Genesis rock up on Wikipedia. By the way, that's a terrible name for a band, so don't go for that. It was the original.
I think it's.
It was originally thought that it had a piece of Moon's primordial crust, but later analysis initially showed that the rock was only 4.1 or give or
plus or minus plus or minus a million.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which is younger than the moon itself. But it was formed after the moon's crust solidified. Yeah.
Well, it comes back to various theories of where the moon comes from.
Yeah.
And I think the most commonly accepted one as far as science goes is there was a collision between Earth and another planet. I think the planet was called Eris. Could be wrong. Oh, no. Yeah, a Mars-sized body named Theia, Theia, which collided and effectively blasted a chunk of the Earth's, at that point, primordial molten crust off, which then coalesced into the moon in orbit. So the moon is effectively made of the same stuff as the Earth.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting, though, when they were going through, because they did mention where the moon came from, didn't they? And that theory wasn't mentioned then, was it? Because I don't think that theory was out there then.
I think it's things like that which will have helped solidify that theory. I think because again, it's only by going there and when you analyze the rock and you realize it's made of the same stuff, like from a chemical standpoint as Terran rock from here on Earth, it's only at that point you can start saying, okay, these come from a common origin.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something else because I don't believe we've had Martian rock, but it's only Martian rock which has kind of fallen here because it's been blasted off of Mars from other collisions and from its early formation.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've managed to bring back any rock from Mars yet. And that's certainly one of the things that they'll be looking to do at some point in the near future. It's all been analysed on Mars. One of the things Curiosity has, it has a spectrograph. So, it can kind of break down and analyse the chemical composition of rock. But yeah, that's, another thing they want to do to look at all that stuff.
Yeah, because wasn't there a mission plan to take samples and then blast them back to Earth?
There's been a couple of that, because I think there was plans to do that on the moon. In fact, I think they did do that it was either the Russian or early NASA ones. It kind of landed, loaded up, and then fired some stuff back.
Right.
But again, a lot easier to do that from the moon than it is to do that from Mars. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, well, greater distances and also the gravity as well, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was the Genesis rock, and they got very excited by it and brought that back. And we also had a little science demonstration towards the end, the Galileo Was Right moment, which is that objects of different weights will fall at the same speed in a vacuum.
That's correct, yes.
Basically.
And they thoroughly proved that. Now, I think this is where my continuity error comes in. And
okay.
You know what I'm like with continuity errors? It bugs me when you have the original there and there's no excuses.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure, because I only watched this once and I picked up on it straight away. Now, whether I was just misseeing it or not, or I was looking for something wrong, but they had stock footage of the actual experiment happening.
Yes.
And they had the hammerhead down at the bottom. But on the HBO footage that they had there,
he's holding
hammer was at the top. Now, there is no excuse for that to happen. I'm sorry. That is bad. That is poor, and that bugs me.
No, I think I can explain why they did that. They did that so people wouldn't later mistake that for actual footage and start putting their tinfoil hats on saying, see, they faked the whole thing.
Oh, okay. So we have to have continuity errors because of idiots.
Basically, yes. They are why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. Right. The people that think that we didn't go to the moon, they're not allowed anything that has come from that progress of humans. They can just live back before they went to the moon.
They can go and be Amish somewhere.
There you go. Yeah, they're not allowed electric cars. They're not allowed anything from nowadays. They just have to go back. Tough.
I'm totally on board with that. I am 100% on board with that. Plus, we can also make fun of them because they won't have access to technology to listen to this. So, haha.
Yeah, up yours, booyah.
Yeah.
And just die in a fire, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything else really there to kind of cover. I did like again during the classroom portions, if you will, when they're doing the field trip, is how you had Dave Scott and Jim Irwin running around just getting rocks. They kind of enthusiastic, but perhaps in the wrong way, and they're just gathering as many of rocks as they can, and they bring them back like smug and excited, like hoping to impress teacher. Yeah. And they just kind of pour them out, and they're just like, oh well. It's a good first try, and you can kind of just see how deflated they get, which was funny. And then Schmitt comes with his ones, and the guy literally has a bloody orgasm there with them.
Yeah, well, I think one of the guys, sorry, apologies, I forget what his name was, but one of the guys brought back almost exactly the same rocks.
Yeah,
in his bag, and it was just, oh well, this is interesting. Moving on.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, shall I talk to you a little bit about the Apollo 15 controversy?
Yeah, go for it, because I'm intrigued by this.
So, this isn't something that actually is mentioned at all in the episode. Little surprising, but I suppose you can understand because no one particularly comes out overly well with this. So, there's actually two controversies here. The first one is the postage stamp incident. Now, basically, there was a commemorative post stamp covers. We call them first day covers over here, but effectively, it's an envelope with a stamp, gets a postmark on it, and people collect them. because of course they do.
Yeah.
And so anyway, there was 400 of these printed, but 2 were damaged and destroyed. But they were basically taken to the moon by the Apollo 15 crew. Now, allegedly, we say allegedly, this was unknown and unauthorized by NASA. And when they came back, this German stamp dealer, who had kind of given them the idea, was going to sell them for them to give them the money for it, basically.
Yeah.
And as soon as they got back, they do it. I'll give you a little background as to why they were doing this. Astronauts were not allowed to buy life insurance. So the thought was, if they have this, it's, rainy day fund sort of thing, something happens, the family's covered, It wasn't like they're just doing it to become rich. Anyway, they went up with these first day covers, took them to the moon, brought them back, and this guy starts selling them. NASA found out about this and lost its shit. Basically said that anything that went to the moon, I think, is NASA's property and isn't allowed to be sold or stuff like that, or had to be destroyed and everything. The Senate got involved and there was closed door hearings and everything. It was quite a big controversy at the time. None of the astronauts from Apollo 15 ever flew again. Whether by design or because of this, we know how NASA has been with, if there's any kind of controversies, you just ain't flying.
Yeah.
So none of them flew again and everything. And it just became this massive thing. Now, Dave Scott says that's not the case. And NASA did know, because as he points out, there's no way for them to get those things on the spacecraft without NASA knowing about it. Because again, it's not like you can shove them down your bloody pants, because you're going through the crew room to be suited up into a spacesuit. There isn't anywhere to hide it. He says NASA knew it was there. And Deke Slayton said, normally Deke Slayton would go through the manifest for all the astronauts and personally sign it off. He says with 15, he delegated it to subordinates.
Okay.
So there's a certain bit of he said, she said going on there. But anyway, apparently only 100 of these are still around today. And again, they're worth a lot of money if you can get hold of one. I believe, I'm just reading here as well. Yeah. In 1983, the astronauts sued the government, wanting them to return them, especially in the light of NASA started flying postal stamp covers on space shuttle missions to raise missions to do commemorative things there as well.
Yeah.
So, there was that. Now, that was the one controversy.
A question about that. So
yes,
they would take them to the moon, and then on return from the moon, they would be paid money.
They would sell them, yes, for money. So
how is that life insurance if on the way to or from the moon they are lost or damaged or...
No, astronauts weren't allowed life insurance, period.
Yeah.
No, even after the mission. So they weren't worried about the mission being a problem and them dying. Theirs do it. Once they got back, they still weren't allowed life insurance.
I know, but if they didn't get back, then they wouldn't be able to sell these things to be a nice little nest egg.
Yeah, exactly. But they weren't doing it because they were worried something would happen on the mission.
Yeah.
They were worried that they're going to get hit in, that they're going to die of some form of cancer later on, or they'll get in a crash in their Corvettes because they're all driving Corvettes, or something else happens.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to have life insurance after the fact.
Yeah.
Either. Because apparently insurance companies probably think that being an astronaut on your job description might be a bit hazardous for them.
Yeah.
So they weren't really doing it for that. It was more making a trust fund or, stuff like that.
Right.
Do it. Because again, astronauts, they're not paid billions or millions of pounds. They're not like superstars.
These are not millionaires, no.
No, it's a government job at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, apparently, they go for 55. One sold in 2014 for $55,000.
Nice.
So there you go, not bad. But the second controversy involves basically they commissioned a Belgian artist to make a tiny little statue. It's called the Fallen Astronaut. It's about 3.5 inches, and they placed it on the rim of Hadley Rill with the name of 14 astronauts and cosmonauts who died throughout the space race up until that point.
Right.
Including the ones that were killed in the T-38 crashes, you know. Now, the deal was, or at least Scott, who was one behind this, he'd asked this artist, and, you know, he's an artist of some, you know, note, you know, he's done bits and pieces, said, we want you to make a single copy, which we will then take to the moon, and that's it. We don't want any more. But basically, NASA didn't discuss it, and they didn't identify him, and he took that as a slight, the sculptor.
Yeah.
So after that, he decided he was going to sell copies of it, which Scott viewed as a betrayal of their original agreement, and NASA got the hump about again. And so, he finally agreed not to do it, but he still sold one copy of them. And, it just kind of caused a lot of grief. It is to date, though, I believe, the only sculpture on the moon.
Right, okay.
So, yeah. Again, all of this is on the Wikipedia for Apollo 15 and Dave Scott, and you can see a picture of it.
It's tiny, isn't it?
It is tiny. It's a nice gesture, I think. But, you know, the sour grapes and all this just do kind of sully it a little bit. But yeah.
Then again, okay, it's like, hold on. Where do you stop with this stuff? That's the problem with it. I feel, you know, if you're having a sculpture, or if you're having stamps taken to and back from the moon, and where does the moon becomes a commercial enterprise then, doesn't it?
Well, it's going to happen regardless, you know, sooner or later. I mean, we've got Al Bean from Apollo 12, who paints portraits and paintings of the moon, and he mixes in moon dust from his boots onto it. You know, it's the thing is, the moon's only special now because it's so exclusive. You know, only half a dozen people have walked on it. When it gets to the point where you and I can go and book a package weekend on the moon, or if we raise $2 billion on the Patreon to do it, it suddenly loses that, you know, special appeal there. You know, it's not so special at that point. So, but still, at this point, it kind of is that. And yeah, you know, it's I feel a little bad for these guys. I don't think there was any malice or, you know, again, any sense of greed. They weren't looking to do it to get rich and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think NASA, though, decided to basically throw them under the bus to avoid it looking bad.
Yeah. I'm sure they would have got a nice pension from NASA or the state anyway, wouldn't they? Surely.
Oh God, no. No. Firstly, it's America, so we don't believe in things like pensions and stuff like that. And secondly, again, you know, it's, you know, budgets being what they are and falling down. I mean, I think that there was other ways for them to make money, you know, be it through book deals, you know, and talks and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know if those sort of things were really done in the 60s or 70s as we are now.
Yeah.
I think it only is something that happens now where, you know, if one of these guys wants to go and give a talk, he can command, you know, $5,000 a seat to hear him talk about his experiences.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know about either of these, about the little statuette or the stamps.
Oh, there you go. So
it's kind of hidden, isn't it, that sort of stuff?
It is a little bit.
I suppose NASA doesn't really want to make a big hoo-ha about it either.
Yeah, which is just, a bit of a shame. I especially think that fallen astronaut thing is a really nice... And again, we'd seen other crews do little memorials. We had the one that left the astronaut pin. I think that was Apollo 12.
Yep.
Left the astronaut pin on the surface. So yeah, there's little bits. I think on one of the LMs, there's little bits of pixel art as well, which someone did, and left it on one of the landing legs. So yeah, there's little things here and there, but there was no real concentrated plan. And I think it's a shame. I think it'd been really cool if NASA had like been a bit more on it. It was like, we're also going to leave art on the moon, you know, just little expressions of human culture. Mm-hmm. I think that'd been really cool as well.
Yeah, but it's not exactly graffiti in the moon at the moment. You know, you look up at a telescope, you're not going to see this stuff, are you?
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to see it. So it's just there in photos and that kind of media. So we're not actually going to be able to see it. And until someone goes up there with a car and draws a massive dick in the regolith with the wheels from the car, then that is the day where you turn around and say, okay, I'm done. The moon, no, someone needs to go out there and clean that off.
Yeah. Someone get up there with a rake and just kind of...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, yeah, that goes back to, that film. Oh, what was the film? Moon. Surprisingly.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going for the hydrogen 3, is it? Or helium 3?
Helium 3, yeah.
And they're just raking the moon, aren't they? They're just combing over it for that. And that's kind of desecrating the face of the moon. And I don't want to come to a day where that is happening and you can see the moon change colour, shall we say.
Yeah.
That would be a sad day.
Well, if you watch The Expanse, which is a fantastic TV show, and everyone should watch The Expanse, in the opening credits, you see the moon. And it's basically, it looks like looking at the Earth at night. It's just streetlights everywhere and cities and everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. You know, that's the way it'll go. But it's also kind of a bit of a shame that, it's kind of gone. But anyway, I think that's as good a place as any to leave off with Apollo 15. Yeah,
why not? Yeah, I honestly, summing up, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It's one of my favourites.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I enjoy it. Great cast. Great story told really well. And again, I think Apollo 15, one of my favourite missions again. A bit of a lesser known one, but again, did some really good science there. And yeah, it's all around A+.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Cool.
So what have we got next time out, following on from 15?
Well, we have episode 11. I'm just going back to my IMDb page. It's the Wives Club, the original Wives Club.
Ah, yes.
Now, this, I'm assuming, is going to be about Apollo 16.
It is.
Or thrown in there, at least.
Yes, with Ken Mattingly, formerly of Apollo 13.
Right. Now, I'm looking at the ratings on IMDb, and it is rated exactly the same as We Interrupt This Program. So that doesn't bode well.
It does not bode well at all.
So have we got a poor one before we finish?
I think we might. Oh, no.
Oh, well.
Well, I was going to say you draw more short straw, but I had to do it. I was driving for 13, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, that's
Short
true.
turn.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, well, I'll do my best to look forward to this one, at least.
We'll see. It'll be fine. But yeah, only a couple more episodes to go on our little adventure to the moon. So yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, anything you'd like to plug, sir?
Well, if you've enjoyed this episode and enjoyed the ramblings of two idiots talking about the moon, which we've never been to and probably never will go to as well, you can pop along to Rogue 2 Media and find the same two idiots talking about Band of Brothers who have never been in the war, and the same two idiots talking about the Grand Prix podcast, where we talk about cars going around in circles.
I was going to say, and we've never raced in the Grand Prix.
No, we've never raced in the Grand Prix. But, it's free entertainment, so pop along to iTunes or any other place that you pick up your podcasts and give them a listen.
Yes.
You never know, you might actually like something you find. So, yeah.
I thought you were about to say you might learn something. I was going to say, fat chance.
No, but not a chance of that.
You might like something. And yeah, as we mentioned earlier, we have a Patreon.
Yep.
What is it? Is it patreon.com Rogue 2?
Yeah, / Rogue 2 Media.
/ Rogue 2 Media. Go there, chuck in a buck. Basically, any amount of money that you wouldn't miss if you dropped it on the floor, give us that. You know? If it's not worth you going down and picking it up, we'll take it off your hands. And we have a commitment. If we get to £2 billion, we will go to the moon and record a podcast live. We will actually sit in our spacesuits and hold a microphone outside of the helmet in the style of the Apollo 12 episode, just, because we thought it'd be fun. So go and do that. Also, if you have enjoyed this, go and tell a friend. Tell a friend, say, hey, come have a listen to this. Couple of idiots, but trust me, it's worth it. Or if you don't like the person, tell them to listen to it because, be the better man, be the bigger person.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, there you go. Or if you didn't like this, give it to your enemies because you don't like them.
Yeah, and say, suck you.
You see, there's really no excuse for you not to pass this on to someone else. So do it. Do it. I'm looking at you. I'm doing the old eyeball thing here.
It's used for entertainment or damage control, I suppose.
Entertainment or punishment, depending on your point of view. Again, you can find me over at O2 Media. You can also find Elton over at the Black Dog Podcast, where he's talking about films and that sort of jazz.
Yep. The latest one is Audition, which is a different movie. If you're listening to this in a year's time, then that was about a year ago. So that doesn't mean anything. But pop over to the blackdogpodcast.com and listen to four idiots talking about movies.
There's lots of idiots on all these ones. Although one person who's not an idiot and whose stuff you should also go and listen to is Jim Moon over at Hypnogoria. He's got some fantastic stuff. There's lots of people in the circle. If you go to O2 Media, there's links to everyone there. So go and check them out there. Mm-hmm. But still, other than that, I think it's time for us to strap in and prepare for re-entry. So I'll say thank you for joining me once again, Elton.
No worries, mate. I'm looking forward to this re-entry. Wow.
Right, it's gotten awkward all of a sudden.
It has, yes.
You know, I'm just going to leave it there and say I should go.